can I be honest for a minute? Sometimes the phrase God is merciful can feel like a hollow platitude, right? You hear it in a sterile church service, maybe on a Sunday morning, but then you go back to your real life, and it's just chaos. You're dealing with grief that feels like a physical weight, or maybe financial ruin that keeps you up at night, or a family that's just broken into a million pieces. And you look at the wreckage and you think, okay, where's the mercy in all of this? Where is this merciful God people keep talking about? It's a fair question. It's an honest question. And I think to even begin to answer it, we have to start by dismantling a huge myth that many of us have been taught, maybe without even realizing it. And that myth is this: that mercy is the absence of pain. We've come to believe that if God is truly merciful, He would just take the pain away. He would prevent the bad things from happening. He would make our lives easy and smooth. But that's not what mercy is. Mercy is not a get-out-of-pain-free card. It is the presence of God right in the middle of your pain. It's His nearness when everything and everyone else feels far away. To really understand this, we have to look at the life of someone like Joseph in the Old Testament. This is a story that many of us know, but let's look at it through this lens of messy mercy. Joseph was a dreamer, the favored son, and for that, his own brothers turned on him. They threw him into a dark pit, left him for dead, and then decided to sell him into slavery. Imagine the betrayal, the sheer terror of that moment. That doesn't look like mercy. Then he's in Egypt, a foreign land, serving as a slave in Potiphar's house. He works hard, he's trustworthy, and he starts to rise. Maybe for a moment, he thinks things are turning around. Then, he is falsely accused of a terrible crime by Potiphar's wife simply because he did the right thing. He's thrown into prison. Again, where's the mercy? He's forgotten in that prison. For years, there was no visible, dramatic rescue. No divine intervention that swooped in and made it all stop. The heavens didn't part. An angel didn't come and break him out of jail. For years, there was just silence and darkness and the four walls of a cell. By all external measures, God had abandoned him. But the biblical text tells us something fascinating. Over and over, through each stage of this horrific journey, it says one simple, powerful thing: the Lord was with Joseph. That's it. That's the key. The mercy wasn't in the deliverance from the pit, but in the presence within the pit. The mercy wasn't in preventing the prison sentence, but in the companionship during the prison sentence. The mercy was the resilience God gave him to endure. It was the favor he found even in the darkest of places with the jailer. It was the sense of meaning and purpose he somehow managed to find even in the depths of his despair. The mercy was the simple, profound, and unwavering presence of God. So when you're in your own pit, when you feel imprisoned by your circumstances, the first place to look for mercy isn't for an escape route. It's for the evidence of His presence right there with you. It might be a small thing, a moment of peace, a friend who calls at just the right time, a strength you didn't know you had. That is mercy. Mercy is presence. But what about those times when even that presence feels distant? What about when the pain is so overwhelming, so loud, that you can't feel or see or sense God at all? You pray, and it feels like your words are just hitting the ceiling. You cry out, and all you hear back is the echo of your own voice. This is another layer of the mess, and it's where so many of us get stuck. We think our doubt or our anger or our despair means we've lost our faith. We think if we were better Christians, we'd feel God's presence all the time. But this is where we find a surprising form of mercy, the mercy of weeping. Look at the Psalms. This book is right in the middle of the Bible, and it's filled with raw, unfiltered, human emotion. It's a prayer book for people in pain. Over and over again, the psalmists, including King David, a man after God's own heart, cry out, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" They're not holding back. They're accusing God of being absent. They're demanding to know where He is. And we read this, and we might think, wow, that sounds like a lack of faith. But it's the exact opposite. This is not a lack of faith. It is a profound prayer that God actually honors. It's an act of deep trust to bring your raw, unfiltered, ugly pain directly to Him instead of turning away from Him. You're essentially saying, God, I don't understand what you're doing. I can't feel you, and I'm angry about it, but you're the only one I can bring this to. God is big enough to handle your questions, your anger, and your tears. In fact, He invites them, giving you the language for your lament. through the words of the psalmists, is a profound act of mercy. He's giving you a script for when you have no words of your own, allowing you the space to weep, to grieve, to be utterly broken before Him without fear of judgment is an act of mercy. Sometimes His mercy is not in stopping the storm, but in sitting with you in the boat while it rages, letting you scream at the wind and the waves, and just being there. So if you're in that place of feeling nothing, don't pretend. Don't put on a brave face. Open the Psalms and let them be your prayer. Yell, cry, question. It's a holy act. It's a form of worship that God receives as a sweet, honest offering. The mercy is in the freedom to be fully human, fully hurting, in the presence of a God who is fully compassionate. And then, after the presence in the pit, and after the permission to weep in the storm, there is the long game of mercy. This is the hardest part to see when you're in the middle of it, but it's the most powerful. It's the mercy of redemption. Let's go back to Joseph's story. Decades have passed. After all that suffering, through a miraculous turn of events, Joseph is now the second most powerful man in Egypt. A famine strikes the land, and who shows up looking for food? His brothers. The very same brothers who sold him into slavery. They don't recognize him. He has every right to take his revenge. He has the power to destroy them, to make them pay for every tear, every lonely night in that prison. But he doesn't. And in this incredible, emotional reunion, Joseph looks at his terrified brothers and says one of the most profound sentences in all of Scripture. He tells them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Think about that. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. This is the ultimate, mind-blowing mercy. It asks the power of God to take the most broken, painful, unjust pieces of your life, the betrayal, the loss, the failure, the things that were meant to destroy you, and to weave them together into a stunning tapestry of purpose and redemption. It doesn't mean the bad things were actually good. The betrayal was still betrayal. The suffering was still suffering. Joseph never says, "Oh, it's okay that you sold me into slavery." No, he says, "You intended it for harm." He calls it what it is. But then he points to a higher intention, a bigger story. The mercy is not that God prevented the mess. The mercy is that He doesn't let the mess have the final word. He takes the very worst of what this world and other people can throw at you, and He redeems it. He works it into a plan that is bigger than your pain, a plan that can bring about good for you and for others in ways you could never have imagined. This is the hope we cling to. The mercy of God is not about erasing your past. It's about redeeming your past. It's about the promise that your scars can become part of a story of healing, that your failures can become a foundation for wisdom, and that your deepest pain can be used to bring comfort to others. The cross is the ultimate example of this. The most horrific act of injustice in history, the death of the perfect Son of God, became the very mechanism for the salvation of the world. God specializes in this kind of reversal. He brings life out of death. He brings beauty from ashes. So if your life is falling apart right now, if you feel like you're in a mess that you'll never get out of, my encouragement to you is this. Stop looking for a magic escape hatch. That's the myth of mercy. Instead, start looking for the real thing. Look for His presence in the pit, even if it's just a flicker. Cry out to Him in your pain, with all the honesty and anger you have. And hold on, with everything you've got, to the promise of the redemptive power of a God who specializes in resurrection. He is a master at taking broken things and making them beautiful. Your story isn't over. The mess doesn't get the final word. Mercy does. If you're in a season of mess and this message of hope resonates with you, please know you are not alone in this. There are so many of us walking through difficult places. Subscribe for more content on how to find and hold on to God, even when it's hard. Thanks for listening.